Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven. My wonderful guest tonight is Susan Sheppard. And Susan, it's wonderful to have you on board this evening, this late night.
Oh, it's great. This is my time. This is when I feel the most awake.
Excellent. I'm glad. And it's wonderful just talking to you and just checking in and seeing what you're up to. And like I said, I have your cards, and I love your astrology cards. So I encourage the listeners to purchase a copy. Yeah, they're beautiful. They're just gorgeous, and they work really well. Excuse me as I lose my voice here. But yeah, they're really, really nice. So I would encourage everybody to do that. I get my late frog voice going. Go ahead.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's basically you don't have to. You really don't have to be able. You don't have to cast a horoscope or a chart and understand it. There's a book that goes along with it, and you can use them. They're not tarot cards, but you can use them, the way to use any other cards. So hopefully people seem to like them, and I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I love them. Excuse me, I think they're fantastic. So are you working on another deck too, aren't you, or no?
I am. I am, but it's kind of a secret.
Oh, okay.
But,
let us know when it's ready.
It's a wonderful idea. I'll tell you that. It's something that hasn't been done before, and it needs to be out there. So it's something I'm working on now.
Very good. Yeah, they're always fun to work with, period. So that's going to be fun.
Well, I started divination very young, and I started out with using regular playing cards, the old gypsy fortune-telling way, and evolved into tarot cards and different things. So it just seems to be something I have a knack for, and it's worked out for me, so it's been great.
Excellent. Yeah, well, keep us posted so we can promote it.
I want to talk a little bit about something I hope to work on. It's actually kind of controversial, and it's called witch-born, and that is the idea that witches are not made; they are born the way they are, which that is something I truly believe. I don't. If you look all over the world, witches are different religions, for one thing. We talked about earlier that most of them in South America, Brazil, they're Catholic, of course. They go to Mass. Marie Laveau, the famous voodoo priestess, which would be a type of a witch, she was a very devout Catholic as well. And, the different countries you go into, there are always witches, but they are not necessarily Celtic witches or European. The one thing that didn't ever really totally make sense to me, because at one time in Europe, before the Abrahamic religions came into Europe, everybody was pagan, but not everyone was a witch, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
But so that's something too I'm working on, and one idea too is what's the difference between say a psychic and what's the difference between just a regular psychic and a witch? And the psychics can pick up energies. They can divine, the future. They can divine the present. They can pick up all kinds of information. The difference between the witch and the psychic is the witch can make things happen.
Very true.
That's a major difference, in that she or he can use their abilities to cause things to happen. But witches aren't the only ones that do this. Other people do it in forms of prayer.
Right.
It's all about intention anyway.
Yeah, it's a consciousness thing. Well, it's always a psychic war. It's really a consciousness war. When you think about it, it's really a manifestation. So I think that's what the world is in conflict by. It's just there's too many people with different belief systems that are just completely polarizing.
Yeah, they are, and it's very disturbing, because I've never gotten upset over either one, and Christians, of course, have very much persecuted me here in town, throwing rocks at me, and
are you serious
and
still?
Everything else. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's not all right. What do you do about that?
Parking their cars up on the sidewalk, so my tour group will have to walk in the street. Yeah.
That's terrible. You know what? That's not okay with me. And they want to pretend they're Christian? Really?
Yeah.
What's wrong with these people?
I'm much more tolerant of them than they are of me.
Well, that's always been the way. And that's the problem we're running into, isn't it? Like I said, I don't have a problem with anybody's religion until they're trying to kill me or they're trying to persecute or harass me due to their own belief systems, basically.
Well, of course, when I was growing up, we had the little church close to my house would have Halloween parties.
Yeah.
Churches used to put on Halloween parties. People would dress up and they'd play games and ghost stories. Even older people with ghost stories. And now it's in a conservative area like this, it's considered to be a bad thing. To tell a ghost story.
Wow.
So
yeah, it's unfortunate. It's got to change. I don't know if it's ever going to, but it really does need to change. That's just tacky.
It's concerning.
Well, it's concerning because the old witch hunts never faded. The problem is that
there's new forms of them.
Yeah, exactly. And there's even on the internet.
Form, and that right now politically they're in a totally new form. So it's the left is really right now. They're actually the ones that are trying to repress things. It's scary, it really is.
Yeah, it's all polarizing. It's always inverted, and I think if people just went spiritual and just negated their religions, I think the world would be a better place. Quite honestly, I think that's what it takes. And for me, coming from my background, it really is about spirituality. It's not about any one construct. It's about higher consciousness and alchemy, and I think that's what they need to do. Otherwise, they're never going to get past this block. They're never going to get past it. And I mean, there's always persecution. There's always people that claim to be their righteous Christian or the righteous religion, but yet in the name of their God, they want to persecute everybody else. And then they gripe about being persecuted by, say, the Middle Eastern, Islamic stuff. But at the same time, they're the ones that used to persecute the mystics and the scientists and the ancient ones. So it always goes back and forth due to their own belief systems. They're all persecuting each other. It's got to stop. It just has to stop. So I'm sorry that they're bothering you like that. Hopefully that they'll, I would report them quite honestly.
Not as bad as it was. Well, of course, the tourism love me here.
Yeah.
But it's just a few small groups, but it's just so amazing, that something so mild, people would, it's very polarized, like you said, at the current time. And, years ago, people, they could be Christian and go to church like my aunt and then table tip and have
right. Yeah, well, I come from that kind of background too. I mean, they were very spiritual people, but they were also they were Scottish Masons and Eastern Stars and into mysticism.
Yeah, exactly.
And we grew up around all that. So it was always alchemical and very supernatural. And of course, I was always naturally psychic as a child anyway. And so, natural born witch is right. Total. But I consider us priestesses and high priestesses and a lot of other things. I consider myself a mystical scientist. So because of the alchemy I've incorporated over, decades and decades, but they don't know, unless they walk in your shoes, they're not going to understand. But it's unfortunate that they're spooked by their own belief systems and they're controlled by their belief systems, and that becomes a mind control program to some degree.
Well, a few years ago, we went through about a year or two ago, we went through a fortune telling ban. And,
really?
Yeah, it was somebody was applying for a license because they were opening up a shop where people were going to read cards, and they found this old law that had a banning even speaking about astrology, even talking about it. And it was, I think the ACLU intervened, and it was struck down. The old law was, but at that time, the mayor sent word to me through someone, said, tell Susan just to be herself and not to worry. Nothing's going to happen to her. Of course, people were saying, oh, is your ghost tour going to have to end?
Are you kidding me? I would fight that tooth and nail. I'm sorry. Anything like that's dark age mentality needs to go immediately.
Oh, well, the ACLU, they sent them a letter, and it was overturned.
I was going to say, forget that crap. I think they're doing that in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. I think they have some real quirky kind of stuff going on up there. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah.
A lot of that, I think, was when gypsies were passing through, and it was to keep gypsies out of the town, I think, was what it was probably meant for, because the law was from like around 1910, where I can't imagine there were very many card readers and astrologers here. There might have been some, but I think it was to keep them out of town is what it really was.
That sounds like it. Well, a lot of seers. I mean, seers have been around forever, so even my grandmother, she kept it hush-hush when she was doing dowsing, and she would find, I think I've mentioned this before on my show, but she would find, oil for men and people in Texas and make them quite wealthy. She never collected any money, but she was that good at spotting oil. So, yeah.
Incredible.
That's a powerful gift.
Yeah, they go to you secretly. That's like the, when I was a teenager, the preacher's daughter would come to me for readings.
Yeah. Oh, I've had people come.
But don't tell anyone.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? I've had people that ask me to pray for them. I've had priests come to me for consults on some of the things in the supernatural. So I'm sure you probably have had that also. So yeah,
I have had some. Yeah.
So it's really about us working together and not opposing each other. And I think they kind of get that. But some of these other organizations assume the worst and, call you the daughter of Satan and all this other crap. And,
well, they think if you have a power, you're going to be using it in the wrong way. You're going to be using power to harm people or hurt them. Or part of it's envy. My daughter said, Mom, it's because you're free and they're not free. That's what the real problem is. Has nothing to do, or it doesn't have that much to do. It's just that you are free and you are yourself and other people are not free and they don't like it.
I agree with that. I think they're very jealous deep down of anybody's ability. If they can't make money off of it or capitalize off of it or have it, weaponized or something, I think that's definitely part of the reason they attack. Just like I look at the government agencies a lot like that too, because their whole agenda is to extract information from powerful psychics or weaponize the gifts of a psychic. I mean, I've seen that in motion. So it's the same concept. I mean, people are just plain envious. Instead of doing the work themselves or even trying, they just want to steal what people have acquired or what they've acquired in consciousness or their gifts, fine-tuning your skills. Once you get really good at what you do, and I know you're really good at what you do, people, you get looked at. Agencies start looking. They start interfering. I'm sorry, but I've had it happen to me. So I'm very clear on that. So no good. They want to weaponize. It's too bad they don't use things with wisdom and enlightenment, but part of the technology I was interfaced with is Sci-Spy. I mean, it's complete Sci-Spy. It's good. It works really well. You have the right people.
Well, the one time, the strange thing, I had the experience with the waking up and seeing like this green ball of light one time, and it was beautiful. But the thing that struck me about it, the strangest thing, it looked mechanical. It turned and it shot off lights, but it looked like it was mechanical. It looked like it was some kind of, it was very physical. It wasn't like a gas like green ball of light. It turned and it shot off lights and they looked electrical to me. And that's, I don't know.
What year was that? When did that happen?
Oh, that would have been about 1990.
Okay. Wow. That's interesting. Yeah, it's highly possible. Well, I know you've been looked at for a long, long time, so who knows what they were doing to test or do some beta testing or something like that. But yeah, there's all kinds of technology. It's fascinating. I think it's wonderful. I love technology. It's just ethics behind it. You have to look at it on that level.
What is your sign? You're an Aries, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm an Aries. I'm a 29-degree Aries.
Double
Pisces.
In your chart, though, right?
I think I have something way in there, but mostly Aries, double Pisces. Fire and water.
You got Pisces. Okay.
Yeah. Can you tell or no?
Yeah, Aries is a very brilliant sign. That's, of course, what Leonardo da Vinci was. So a lot of people forget that. They think about him and his religious paintings, and of course he wasn't religious at all. But they forget a lot of it. He invented a lot of weapons, for instance, and his inventions were a lot of his inventions were inventions of war for the different little duchies, I guess they called them in Italy. So they would be reinforced against each other. And that's really how he made a living. And then, of course, doing the religious paintings, which is sort of interesting. But, yeah, he was an Aries as well.
Is that right? Well, I'll be darned. Yeah, I'm fierce. I mean, I have that Valkyrie in me, but then I have the Pisces sensitivity. So thank goodness. I think if I had anything other, like if I had some kind of Aries, like double, triple Aries or something, I'd be a nightmare.
Yeah, you wouldn't be as sensitive probably.
Yeah, I would be
sensitive in a different kind of way.
Yeah.
It would not be the same kind of, it wouldn't be the receptive kind of sensitivity.
Yeah.
There are, Aries are sensitive in their way, but not in the same way as a Pisces, though.
Yeah, I think Aries can be very intense. I know this about my own personality, but if I channel my energy correctly, it's fine. It's definitely a warrior spirit, though. There's no doubt about that one. I forgot what sign you were.
I am Cancer. I am a Cancer with, there's a lot of interest. Frida Kahlo was a Cancer. A lot of interesting people that gets forgotten. But Cancer with Scorpio moon and Leo rising.
Yeah.
Leo rising.
What? That's good.
Oh, it's the funniest thing. People, if you got Leo rising, you can't get away with anything because people always notice you.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I can see the Leo. Yeah,
So
Definitely
people are going to notice what you do. So that would be both a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, that's good.
But,
They're very creative, though. I like Leo. Usually very flamboyant. Good sense of art. So usually, I think you're like that too.
Usually. So anyway, looking on this my project about witch born, I go through the different kinds of witches, and I think it's going to be pretty interesting. And that would be the historical witch, and then the general worldview of witches, hereditary witches, where it's passed down, and modern earth-based witches, pagans, and Wiccans, and born or natural witches, which is what I end with, which I think is probably the true witch. I don't think being a witch is a part of any religion, really.
I agree with that. Totally.
That's not a very popular idea.
No, I agree with that also. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
the Wiccans
think
do
that. You know
that.
that you are, too.
Right.
Early.
I think they created a religion to protect themselves, quite honestly. I think that's why it was formulated into a religion, so that they would be acknowledged and not persecuted, and it can be classified as a religion. That's just my take anyway, because it's not necessary. There's no doubt about that. And like you say, I think it's in the DNA and the bloodline. I think it's part of our celestial heritage, so to speak.
Yeah.
When most people think the witch word is a dirty word, it seems to be associated with evil. And I'm not sure why they associate it. I think it has a lot to do with Hollywood. A lot of things that have happened where the name's been just completely butchered.
Yeah, and that, and of course, the Inquisition and all that, where they were, basically most of the people that, even at Salem, of course, none of those people were witches at all. They were, most of them were devout Christians, but it's funny what's happened in Salem now with all their parades and, Halloween festivities and what they're known for, and they kind of come back. Karma came back.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
In a positive way, though.
Yeah.
But, now it's the witch city, and none of those people were witches at all.
Exactly. Well, Lori Cabot's been really good about, she really launched that whole thing with the witches out there and putting them back on the radar in the right way, I guess, because there's been...
Yeah, she did. She used to sell my dolls in her shop.
Really?
So,
oh, how
I
cool.
knew Lori. Yeah, I got a phone call one day saying, Susan, this is Lori Cabot, and I would like to have some of your dolls.
Oh, that's wonderful.
She's not real well right now. I think she's got diabetes pretty bad. She's
right?
Probably about 80-some, maybe 85. Yeah, she's up there now. So
that's awesome. I mean, I love them. They're good. It's nice to see that, because without that benchmark, I don't know what would have happened to that town, quite honestly. You can say it's kind of commercial here and there, and it has gotten a little bit of commercial, but nonetheless, there's some really powerful practitioners there. So, that's something.
And I actually had relatives there.
Do you? Nice. Oh,
a lot of people in West Virginia, their ancestors came down from New England. So I had some. They were not. They were farmers. They weren't involved in the trials or anything, but they lived in Salem. Yes.
Nice.
So,
I love it over there. It's been a long time since I visited, but have you been over recently over to Salem?
I haven't. I want to go back soon.
Be good. Regenerate a little bit, I guess. Maybe. Who knows? There's usually good mojo over there, I hope, anyway. But all kinds of stuff happening there. Well, it's very, very interesting. But I'd like to see that
time. She said, "You cannot make dolls with green faces," and I thought, what do you mean? Green is such a spiritual, beautiful color. And then she called me back up and said, "Forget about that. I love the green faces." Oh. They were trying to get the away from the Wizard of Oz.
Right.
But they would portray Osiris with a green face. Green is the color, that's the color of life, really, is what green is.
Yeah, it's a healing color, healing
I love
vibration.
The green faces.
Yeah. Well, they did try to, everything was contorted and twisted. It came down to representing anything with spirituality or craft oriented. But you're still making the dolls, aren't you, or no?
I still am. I still make dolls when I can.
Very cool. Yeah. They're very nice. So you're selling them? Yes.
I do sell them.
Excellent.
But I haven't. I'm doing book signings now, mostly with the Black Moon astrology cards. It's what I'm sort of working on at this time. So I hope they catch on. The Phoenix cards, of course, they were the first past life deck.
I love those. I told you I have that deck.
Oh, do you have them? Oh, great.
Yeah, I have it. I bought it a long, long time ago, and I didn't even know it was you. I didn't realize I didn't correlate it. Isn't that funny?
1990. And they went on, and they did very well. They're still in print. So that's been almost 30 years they've been in print.
I feel like I'm really old. But yeah, those are great. They're beautiful. So I encourage everybody, if they're still available, purchase a copy for sure.
Well, everything's different now. Everything's done in, with digital art. I designed the Black Moon astrology cards, but they redid them. And they had a program. I hope to get an art program to actually do my own cards, because I could have easily done that if I had the right kind of art program.
Right.
But the publisher, of course, is in Australia, which was different. Blue Angel Publishing in Australia. Everything's so competitive in the writing world. I know you've done several books, but it's so competitive. It's very difficult to get a book published in the United States. You have to have a literary agent.
That's ridiculous.
Written a book, and then so many people are putting their books online for free.
Oh, that's crazy.
For us, that try to write for a living. So then I thought, it was so difficult. I got the idea I would contact foreign publishers, and that worked out. They accepted them right away. Blue Angel
they're beautiful.
I was very lucky
wonderful
with that. So in future books and things, that might be something you would want to consider, and that would be in England, for instance, or Ireland.
Well, I think I'm banned over there. I'm probably banned over those areas. I don't think I don't know.
As it is now, you're probably right.
It's sad though, because my ancestors are from Scotland and Ireland on my mother's side, so like I'm banned from my own land. It's terrible.
Yeah, me as well. I mean, I've got the Native American, but I've got a lot of Irish and Scottish and Welsh and English and all of them, really.
Yeah.
From all the areas of the British Isles, too. So, that's a special place as well. It's so sad to see what's going on over there.
It is. I'm really shocked to see what's happened to that whole land. Yeah, it's very, very magical, and it's being completely hijacked. So, but, the Queen doesn't seem to care. So she doesn't care. She doesn't care about her land. That's really, really sad. If I were the people there, I think they should rise up. I think there are some people that are, but for the most part, I think they're just, I think it's gone. I think that's gone. Sorry, but I think America can get there too. So we have to be very careful. We're teetering between life and death in this country, if you ask me. So even though it doesn't seem that way, it's an illusion. We have to be very, very careful as we navigate here.
I've never in my life been at a time where I have to think before I say things. And I listen also to Camille Paglia. Do you ever listen to her? I love Camille Paglia. Well, she was an early feminist, but she's kind of switched her positions in a lot of ways, a lot of things that believed in, and that is, the highest suicide rate in England, I don't know about the United States, is young men. So if young men are killing themselves at rapid, high rates there's something wrong.
Yeah.
There's something wrong there. And, she's an interesting person to listen to. And she's freedom. She said, she teaches in Philadelphia, I think at Temple. No, is it Temple University? I can't remember. But she said this is the first time in her life she has to really think of what she's going to say in front of her students. That you can't just say what you're thinking or feeling at all. You'll be attacked.
That's crazy.
Was kind of a radical feminist at one point. She's a gay woman, and so she was pretty radical there in late 60s, early 70s. She's kind of seeing the error of those ways now, really, of some things that have happened. So I don't know. It is concerning, but I think we've had worse things happen, though. I mean, we didn't have Facebook when we had the Civil War, for instance.
Right.
It was, if you think about, that was going on. We didn't have the social media that's confusing everything.
That's so true. Yeah, well, everybody's hooked to their social media now, and I think that even with the iPhones, everybody wants to take a picture or watch what's going on in the world opposed to actually interacting, which I've seen more and more. I mean, when it comes to like people being violated in some way, they seem to be filming it, but they don't really want to act. So that's something that I'm looking at as well. It seems like the screen is the protection. So the window to the world is kind of shielding them from interaction, full engagement, so to speak. That's what I'm seeing anyway. So.
Yeah, it does seem that way, and it also can make everyone like a little mini celebrity too in certain ways.
Yeah, they all want their 20 minutes of fame. I think it's crazy. I have to just kind of like get away from it. I'm on the computer a lot during the day, so I try to break orbit a little because it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that it was affecting my moods, and I could also see I was feeling angry all the time. I was always feeling angry. And then when I would take a break from social media, it would go away.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I agree. It can be very toxic. It's just the vibration alone. It's like a cesspool. I'm not saying all of it is, but I would say a lot of it is. It's just psychic regurgitation, man. So you have to. Yeah. I try my best, even on radio. I mean, you have to be. I'm used to it now, but it still can be very. I guess toxic is the word. It really can be.
Oh, it's very. So. Yeah, it's definitely toxic. It's very good for shut-ins. People that are shut in. They don't have interaction with the outside. It's good for people like that, but the other things going on with it. Of course, then there was people noticing they would think something and it would all of a sudden show up on Facebook. Their thought they were only thinking it.
Yeah,
so that's a little disturbing as well.
It's like the minority reports coming our way. Yeah, no doubt about that. Well, the technology's here, so it just depends on where people are going. But I've seen a kind of a mentality going in reverse. I'd like to see people more educated. They seem to be going backwards insofar as their intellectual skills go.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Well, that's been going on a long time.
It has, but it's really starting to show itself even more so.
Right.
That's something to look at. So many things,
Everything is a muck. I mean, you can look back at periods of time, lights coming through, through art, music, a light in the world, even though maybe it wasn't perfect, like the time when the Beatles came in, or or past times, Oscar Wilde, or different movements, and we don't have that anymore.
Right.
We don't have anyone to really, I guess, model for us or
role models. It's interesting.
Of light in a certain way, even though they're not perfect people. I don't mean that, but they're like beacons of light.
Right.
That people can.
I agree.
To lift people up, really, is what it is, too. That can't happen now. It just cannot happen.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Well, it's like the soul's expressing itself through art, music, writing, and that's how it used to be. Very, very non-censored, if you ask me. Even though there was censorship, it wasn't to the extreme it is now. So I see that. I don't see people having that freedom of spirit anymore.
No, they don't.
So whatever's going on with that needs to be changed, I guess. And I think part of it has to do with technology, to be honest, and the misuse of certain dirty electricities and 5G and all sorts of stuff. It interferes with the electromagnetic spectrum. It interferes with us as electromagnetic multidimensional beings. And whether people want to acknowledge it or not, that's okay. But it's still going to affect people on the subtle energy level, and you probably realize this as well. So
they also talk about even men carrying their cell phones in their front pocket. That the sperm count is going down in men.
I believe it.
It's dropping very quickly. Did you know that?
Yes, well, it doesn't surprise me.
Yes, from carrying cell phones in the pocket of their pants, actually sperm count is going down.
Well, that's terrible. Also the monitors that they wear to work out, those I would question. I wouldn't wear those. I know people were having irregular heartbeats wearing some of those monitors. You have to be really careful. Anytime you have electricity attached to you, it's messing with your own electrical circuitry. And that means your heart, your brainwave function, everything else. So I don't think people pay attention
to my phone. I forget it often when I go places.
Yeah, I power mine off, and I don't use it unless it's like absolutely necessary. I'm really good about it. And plus, I was wired into technology, so I kind of have my head wired into that crap anyways. But yeah. It is what it is, but it's. I think it has a great potential to do good things, and then they're weaponizing it, and they're using the wrong transmissions and frequencies to make people, almost brain dead. So that's no good. Yeah. So what do you see down the timeline? Go ahead.
Pardon me? Go ahead.
I was going to ask you.
Well, as far back as the 1960s, for instance, with the UFOs in West Virginia, the Mothman, usually those sightings were around power areas of the towns.
Right.
They would be very close to the power area of the town, So it was even going on at that time.
Yeah, you mean like power? Is it like power?
Yeah, it's with the Men in Black, where we saw the Men in Black up on the hill from my childhood home. it was the whole power area for the small town. It was the whole electrical area up there. That's where my house was.
Very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. And they were measuring something on the hillside. So, but I'm not very technologically inclined, so I don't explain that as well as you do. I just
that's
kind of
okay.
stay away from. Really, I'm more of an intuitive type. But yeah,
Well,
it's scary.
I used to be like that before I
can
was
feel,
hijacked. Go ahead.
I can feel the muck and the mud in the energy, though.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
Sure.
I can feel that the energy has gone down.
Mm-hmm.
It's
been messed with.
frightening.
It's been hijacked and it's been contorted and, in my opinion, interfered with at such a level that it's non-productive. It's a non-productive transmission. That's what I'm seeing on insofar as the way the global array system's running. It's weaponized. And if it's weaponized, it's not for us. It's not in the highest good for our evolution in us or us as multidimensional beings or spiritual beings. So that's the problem we're running into. We used to stream energy all the time. We're natural conduits, and you know this. So
absolutely, yeah.
Getting interfered with that cosmic consciousness and that stream of consciousness because they're running interference. And even though they may not be triangulating a target per se, but just the interference alone is going to jam the transmission. It's going to mess things up. So I think that's deliberate, obviously. And, that's why I say freedom of spirit, universal law. They're violating universal law, and that has to be dealt with. So I don't know how, but
recently, people discussing things or talking things, I usually say, I don't really have an opinion because I don't know the information that I've been given is correct on either side. So I can't have any opinion on something that I don't really know anything about when we're being fed lies, constantly. How can you get an opinion on anything? You can't.
No, you have to have experience. And that's the only reason I can use my own experience as a benchmark is where I've been. I use that technological benchmark. Then I can assess everything else. But for regular people out there who don't know what's going on, no, they're not going to know anything. I mean, they have to do the research, though, and then they have to look up and see what's going on with just plain old electromagnetic pollution and dirty electricity. And the other things that are going on.
Well, what are the UFO sightings? Are they the same? Are they up? Are they down? Do you know with this new...
Last I checked, they obviously are seeing a lot of lights in the sky. Now, whether they're ours in the Black Space Program or manufactured, I'm not certain, but people are seeing activity. Something's out there. But in my opinion, I think it's all ours. I think it's all technological warfare. I think they're just seeing a lot of our Black Science Department and our exotic technologies. So that's just my take. And I do know that the technology they have is capable of brain hacking a target by remote to make them see things that may not be there. In other words, a type of a UFO experience or an encounter that couldn't be, it may not be valid because of the technological frequencies they're running and the interference with psychotronics. So, I mean, if you go down that route, which I know that rabbit hole really well, and I know it's valid, so I have to look at that as a possibility. I'm not saying it's all happening to everybody. I'm just saying that is a high potential because of the way they're abusing the technology right now, which is sad.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's really, and that's why I say, you're a true psychic and you're not contaminated. Count your blessings, because I think
I don't know whether I'm not.
I don't think you are.
To be honest, I mean, no, I don't know if I'm not, but I think I'm probably less contaminated than most people are. But I wouldn't go so far to say I wasn't contaminated by things. I even wonder about the fibromyalgia I have and the chronic fatigue syndrome. If that's not some spiritual thing interfering, I just wonder about that.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be. Or maybe an implant of some kind that's causing the dampening field, making you tired.
No.
What's that?
No.
Okay, we'll cancel that then.
Yeah, I did have as a child. I may have talked about this before, but this is during the Mothman sightings and also the Men in Black, in West Virginia. We had a church bus went by our house, and they called my parents and said there was a UFO. Over the house, and they saw an actual UFO over our house. And about that time, my sister and I slept in the same bedroom, and she went to spend the night with a friend, and I was just a real little girl, about 6, 7 years old. And I woke up in a completely different room that wasn't used in the house, completely naked, with a sheet over my head. And I was doing a lot of sleepwalking at that time, too. And I remember waking up thinking, oh my goodness, did I take my clothes off? And so I threw my clothes on, and I never told anyone. And then I read another account of a man that was being abducted, and I, I hesitate to talk about this, but he had the identical experience, and that was he woke up. He was an adult, and he woke up in a different bed or in a different room, completely nude, with a sheet draped across the body. So, talking about implants, I mean, that's a possibility.
That's really wild. Yeah, it is a high possibility. We have a few questions here in the chat room I wanted to ask you.
Great, okay.
Let me see here. I'm sorry I overlooked these guys. I didn't poke my head in here. Let's see. We have Olive, and that's Solaris asks Susan if she knows of the Gnostic pagan witches from Egypt for 1,000 years of years. Any familiarity with that?
The agnostic pagan witches?
Yeah, the Gnostic pagan witches.
He's the Gnostics. Yeah. Gnostic, right? Not agnostic. Okay. No, I didn't know too much about. I don't know too much about. I love Egypt, and as a matter of fact, when I had a DNA test, I had a small amount of DNA that matched 100% of all Egyptian mummies.
Oh, very cool.
And that, where that comes from? It comes from the Caucasus Mountains, is where they came from originally. Some of them did, or the more ancient ones, yeah. But I love everything Egyptian, but I don't know too much about the Egyptian Gnostics. But I definitely want to look into that. So that sounds really cool. I like that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And he also says that these were powerful women of truth who the Christian leader archbishops killed the Gnostic women. And I guess he was trying to say were raped or something else. But yeah, so it sounds like definitely. So thank you all for that one. And also we have Casual in there asking, ask Susan if she has ever helped the law enforcement to solve a crime.
I have. I did that as a child, and I've done it pretty recently.
Nice.
When I was about 13 years old, there was there was a prison out. The prisoners broke out of West Virginia Penitentiary, and they were dangerous, and I was able to locate them for the police. They were caught. I indicated where they were, and I was just a really young child at that time, and I did some work on missing persons, and then I worked on the case for Aaliyah Lunsford. I don't know if you remember that case, but it was on Nancy Grace, and everything was little girl that was missing. And they consulted about 70 psychics, and I drew a map, and I described an area. I described a blue tarp, and I drew a map, and told them that it was where there was a dump, and they went. And they found the blue tarp, and when they picked up the blue tarp, there was a garbage bag, and then in that garbage bag there were her clothing. There was all of her clothes. That's the only thing they've ever found of her, though. But she was only 2 years old, and that was in the mountains. But they just her mother was just arrested for having killed the little girl. But yes, I sort of did that case. That was the only thing they found. Was her clothing. I was the one that found it.
That's fascinating. Wow, that's awesome. So you did that remote viewing or automatic writing? How did that happen?
That would be remote viewing. It's pretty much good. You just close your eyes and imagine yourself, sort of like flying over some of the places, and you know how that is. You just see images, strange images. You don't know what they mean. I saw little orange triangular flags. I did not know what that meant. And when I got to the property where they found her clothing, they had little triangular orange flags around where they had found her clothing. So, you see different things, and the blue tarp, and it was pretty it was very accurate.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's wonderful. Well, you should do that full time.
Me full time? No, not. I don't do it full time. I don't really enjoy it. Solaris working on criminal cases and murders and missing. I don't enjoy it, but I will do it if they ask me, though. If I'm asked. So I did. I worked for the family in that case.
Yeah, that's really good. I wish. I think more law enforcement are getting kind of switched on to that. So hopefully that'll still continue on, where they're not so spooked by people who have special gifts, so to speak. And
a lot of people. Well, a lot of people. I'm sure they get overwhelmed with all the information. They'll get people who think that they see things, or they thought they saw a little girl at a restaurant in Pennsylvania, and things like that. And it becomes there's so much information, it's very confusing. So it's important probably to use the ones that have been tried and tested to work on those cases, with the understanding that the psychic may not be able to see anything in that particular case.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It's been an interesting life.
Yeah, you should write a book on that one alone. That's once again some very interesting things. Looking into the database of the crime syndicate. Well, I know it's an ugly world, but somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, it's not the happiest thing to do.
It's not.
I was talking to my boyfriend today, and he's a musician, and I said, it's not like when you learn a song. You learn to play a song, and you can improvise, but you know how to play the song. As you start to play the song, when you're trying to pick up psychically, it's like having to sit down and write a new song every time. You're having to write something new because it's never the same. So you're having to create and invent or whatever, or pick up. It's new each time, so it's not and that's why so many psychics, a lot of them end up. It's very difficult to keep that up. It's so difficult. And a lot of them end up faking things, like the Fox sisters or different mediums in the past. And there's questions about the Long Island medium and questions about John Edwards and different people. That is very hard to keep up. It really is.
Yeah, I think some of it's just psychology. They probe for information. I notice a lot of those psychics do, so-called psychics. They ask too many questions, and in my opinion, that's a red flag. So, yeah. And it is. I mean, you either have it or you don't, and it's there, and usually it's there when it needs to be. It doesn't have to be switched on 24 hours a day.
You could be extremely gifted and stand up there and bomb horribly in front of millions of people. So I worked on a show, Scariest Places on Earth, and they faked a lot of stuff. This was years ago, and it was at the Shawnee Amusement Park in Bluefield, West Virginia. And I was with a friend. I said, "You want us to go down and see what we can pick up with some of our equipment and what I can pick up?" They didn't want us doing that because they already had people down there getting ready to fake some of the haunted things that were going on.
Oh, that's terrible.
Well, they had 24 hours to do the show. So they go and investigate a place that's allegedly haunted, which it is, but it was allegedly haunted. And what if nothing happens? They wasted all of their time.
Right.
You never know when it's going to happen. So that's why I don't do a lot of ghost hunts and investigations anymore, because I have just as many experiences just, going through life and not even seeking it out. But I know it's a lot of fun for people to do those, though. And I'm not
Seems like,
putting it down anyway.
It's a big craze now, I guess, for people to go and check out places like that. I could never figure out the Lizzie Borden thing. Everybody seems to be hooked on that. Have you been over there?
Yeah. I've never been to Lizzie Borden's house. No, I've never been to that. But I'll tell you one thing that is kind of, it's the true crime element with the paranormal is one of the next things coming up, I think. It's what I'm feeling, because they're getting tired of all the ghost stuff. And if you ghost hunt, I had a friend that was a ghost hunter. He since passed away. He said, "You want to go with me on a ghost hunt, prepared to be bored, because usually nothing really happens. You can pick up certain things with your equipment, but usually, as far as experiences, you don't have one. Rarely you do. Sometimes you do.
That makes sense.
And that's why it's more entertaining to bring a psychic with you, too. That makes them a little bit better. But the psychic thing is something where it's easy to fake, and there's a lot of fakes out there right now. I guess there always has been.
Yeah. I've seen that, too.
It's a difficult path. It really is.
Yeah. That's why I say, usually if you're on the path of spirit in one form or another, you just have the skill. It's there. However it defines itself in the moment. And I think that's the best way to utilize it, and just let it roll. I'm so immune to psychic energy. I mean, we are what we are. So I don't think of it as outside of anything spectacular. It just is what it is.
Oh, I don't either. It's funny because, I'll have different experiences and forget them.
Right.
Have a spirit recording or place haunting kind of thing. There's a guy that walks by the window here. I've lived in this house 30 years, and he will walk by the window, and I halfway forget some of the times.
Really?
it becomes kind of mundane. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
going around seeing dead people all the time.
Right.
No, it's not like that at all.
Yeah, it's
like if you
multidimensional.
write a poem, or if you're getting ready to write something, or writing a song, your brain is kind of going into that same place.
Mm-hmm.
It's just when we see things, they're relevant to the situation. It's not fiction, is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's relevant.
Yeah, it's where you put your focus for a lot of people. For us, I mean, when your multidimensional sight and your psychic vision's turned on, then all that's there anyway. But I would say for regular people, it's a little bit harder. They have tunnel vision. They're hooked on the linear world, and like I was saying, this is a world that has been manufactured to some degree, and it's very distorted. So I would say try to navigate in a higher frequency band for sure to get more of that clarity. For the people out there.
That's true, and I have a little bit of attention deficit disorder, and you may not believe in it. I actually do, but they say psychics tend to have that. And it's like your brain is all over the place all the time.
Right.
Your brain is just spread out all over everywhere, and you're always sensing and feeling and thinking. And, Eastern meditation does not work for me. What works for me is I think of one thing that leads to the next thing that leads to the next thing. And my brain, very active, is what leads to my visions and things that I have, and the ideas. And I'm not meditating and clearing my mind, waiting for things to come up to the surface. That's not how I work at all.
No, I don't like that either. Yeah, I agree. Well,
I like to do lots of things at once.
Yeah. And meditation to me, I think it's beautiful, don't get me wrong. And I've done mantras back in the early days, but I find it to be almost lulling, too lulling. I'm very multifaceted, so I like things fast and quick, and I don't like to sit. I'm an energetic being. Yeah.
Yeah, we're very Western in that way.
I think so, and that's part of it.
I know my inclinations, and I know that that's not a good direction for me. That is for many people, but not for me.
Well,
the more things I'm doing and working on, the more ideas, and the happier I feel as well, and more of a sense of well-being I have. So I don't meditate, no.
Makes sense. Well, your whole life is a meditation when you think about it, when you're interactive the way you are. So
right.
That's the way I see it as well. Yeah, for sure. And, we have about 10 minutes plus or minus here, but I want to make sure everybody knows how to reach out to you, connect with you, purchase your wonderful books and whatever else you're selling, and just access all the wonderful information you have out there.
Yes, I did. There's another, I have, of course, the Phoenix cards, which are a classic. They're a reincarnation deck. They were published in late 1990 by Inner Traditions, Destiny Books, Astrological Guide to Seduction and Romance. It's a good book. It's a funny book. It was not my idea, but, it was fun to do. Witch's Runes, which is from the 1990s as well. Recently, my Black Moon astrology cards, which are an astrological oracle, and they're getting really good reviews. So, and you do not have to be an astrologer. I also have the Haunted Parkersburg Ghost Tours, and all you have to do is look that up online. And I haven't updated yet. We're a seasonal tour. Parkersburg's a small city, so it also gets very hot in the summertime, very cold in the wintertime. So it's seasonal. It's in late September, going into the first weekend of November. I will do private tours if you have about 8 people or so. I'll do a private tour.
That's nice.
Quite a length, but fascinating stories on the ghost tour. We have Indrid Cold, the Men in Black, the Banshee of Martown, all kinds of hauntings, all kinds of history, the famous Weeping Woman statue of Riverview Cemetery. Some of your listeners might want to look that up. We have a wonderful haunted statue here in Parkersburg, and it's pretty rich and it's pretty interesting. And I've enjoyed every minute of it, even if I've had rocks thrown at me.
No more rocks. Let's put a mirror on that one. Or bounce it back.
Oh, that was years ago, but yeah, we still have a few things. Protests every once in a while.
Gosh.
Hey, listen, when you get protested, you're doing something right.
I was going to say, you must be a pretty big threat if they're protesting you. Goodness. Yeah. I don't know what they think you're going to do, but who knows? But you are very powerful. That's probably what it is. They're triggered.
Well, thank you so much. And then we have a wonderful mansion Senator Peter Godwin Van Winkle, who helped pass the Emancipation Proclamation, and he was a friend of Edgar Allan Poe. And he was a very interesting character, and there's an old mansion here called the Castle. It's very haunted, and we have stories about the senator. So we have a lot of, excuse me, American West Virginia history. We got lots of paranormal, though, in terms of, especially the Mothman prophecies case, which happened downriver and also where I'm from. And the Indrid Cold part of that story actually happened here in Parkersburg.
Yeah,
so
wild. I like the name Indrid Cold, and I think I've mentioned that before to you. Where did that name come from officially? Does anybody really know?
That's what the alien who Mr. Durenberger said looked like any ordinary man. He told him his name was Cold, Indrid Cold, and I come from a galaxy less powerful than yours. So it's an interesting case. It's you can look into that in the Mothman Prophecies book. John Keel wrote a good bit about that, and in other books. Also, of course, Nick Redfern's new book, The Black Diaries, have a lot about that case too. Excuse me, and all that information has been unpublished until Nick put it in his new book, and that would be elaborations on the Partridge Mothman sighting, more stories about Indrid Cold, more stories about the Men in Black. It's pretty interesting, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like an excellent read. I'll have to check that out for sure. Well, I have to tell you, it's been wonderful to have you on tonight. I'm really appreciative of you being here. Always such wonderful information. It's so nice to touch base with you again. And I'm looking forward to your new book. Is it going to be a book about the new witch? The born witch?
Yeah, Witchborn. I think that's what it's going to be. And so I've been trying to find. I've got quite a bit written on it already.
Excellent.
I think it'll probably be controversial. The only thing I'm a little bit scared about are, the people steeped in the idea of the different religions about it, and the rituals of it, which are not wrong, but this is a whole different viewpoint, and that is you're born that way,
right?
And you have to be born that way, or you won't be. You can't initiate someone into that. They have to be born that way, like a great artist or a great musician, or it's a talent, it's an ability. That's what I believe.
I agree with you on that one too. No, I think it's right. You know what else I can see with that as an oracle deck or something, maybe as a companion or something to your writing. That would be really cool,
Yeah.
Something to look at there.
I like all the Wiccan pagan stuff. I've got my little pentagrams and things. I like it. But I don't really think there's a real relationship back in time so much. So I'm going to have to research it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, follow spirit. That's why I say, follow your intuition on that one. But celestial heritage is what I usually focus on, and that's all encompassing on so many different levels through the genetics and the DNA and through our cellular memory. So, yeah, and to me, it seems like it activates. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote the Phoenix cards about past lives, and then I realized some of the memories I was having were actually genetic memories. They really weren't past lives.
Very, very
interesting. It
interesting.
worked great as a past life deck, but they were genetic memories going on. I thought that was a past life thing.
Oh wow! So were you reading the memories of you or your family or ancestors?
Oh yeah, Native American, constant Native. Where I was in a war, a battle. I was trying to escape, and was being people were being murdered, and that had happened to my ancestors. They were murdered up near Coshocton, Ohio, by the militia, the Lenni Lenape or the Delaware Indians, and it was about 57 miles from West Virginia, really. And my great-great-grandmother came down into West Virginia, and she escaped that, and it was a massacre. And I dreamed about that as a child. And
wow.
I was terrified. Yeah.
Did you ever do anything to clear that, or?
Well, I don't have them anymore. I don't have them anymore.
That's good.
I haven't had them in a long time, so I seem to have made peace with that.
Well, that's interesting. That's something to look at with other people and their, their version of past lives too. They're probably accessing the same type of thing on a time.
I was thinking, I couldn't be that much. I have to be 1/64th, 1/32nd, and I had the DNA test, and I was 1/8. So there was a lot. It was 15% is how much there was.
Wow.
So it was 1/8. So
Which
Missed
DNA
by
test
one
was that?
generation.
Yeah, what did you use? Which company did you use for the DNA testing, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, this was years ago with Family Tree DNA, and I want to have
okay. Great. And everybody, we're just about out of time here. I want to thank you so much, Susan.
Right.
It's been wonderful. And everybody have a wonderful... It's been great. And have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dunder and Becky coming up next to sell you on tonight, like they always do with their show. And I'm not sure what they're talking about, but it will be very interesting. So everybody have a great weekend, and thanks again. And thank you again. It's been wonderful. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you. It was really fun. Thanks.
Have a good night, everyone.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free, but there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all!
See how the trouble you've started?
Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio. The opinions expressed on this radio station